All right, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about something very important. And honestly, something most people are completely missing when it comes to Ripple and XRP. Because this is not about hype. This is not about candles. And it's definitely not about short-term price movement. This is about infrastructure. Now let me say this clearly right from the start. Ripple and XRP are positioning themselves as core blockchain infrastructure for the United States and potentially the world. And once you understand that, a lot of things that confuse people suddenly start to make sense. Why hasn't XRP moved yet? This is the question everyone keeps asking. But here's the real question you should be asking instead. What if Ripple already knows exactly where this is going? Think about it. Ripple has over 1,700 institutional contracts, confirmed through court filings. Ripple controls tens of billions of XRP in escrow. U.S. banks, government agencies, and regulators are watching closely, waiting for one thing: clarity. And while retail is staring at the price, Ripple is doing something very different. They're building quietly. What's happening behind the scenes? Let's look at the bigger picture. Ripple is applying for a U.S. banking license. They're seeking access to a Fed master account. They're aligning with Treasury-level financial rails. They've made multiple strategic acquisitions, companies focused on custody, treasury, compliance, and prime brokerage. These are not moves a speculative crypto company makes. These are moves a financial infrastructure company makes. And that's why Ripple didn't leave the United States when things got difficult. They stayed. They dug in. Because if XRP is cleared in the US, it's cleared everywhere. How much XRP would the system actually need? Now this is where things get really interesting. Let's walk through a few realistic scenarios. In a basic scenario, where XRP is used as a liquidity rail for domestic and cross-border settlement, replacing friction in systems like SWIFT, the system would require billions of XRP just for throughput and velocity. Not ownership. Throughput. In a more advanced scenario where XRP is used by government and treasury-level entities as a neutral bridge asset for settlement, tokenized treasuries, and agency corridors, you're talking 10 to 15 billion XRP. And in a full institutional rollout, banks, clearinghouses, government desks, and systemically important financial institutions, that number climbs even higher. At that point, most of the supply is no longer discretionary, it's allocated. And that explains something important. Why escrow isn't being dumped. People misunderstand escrow. Escrow doesn't mean for sale, it means reserved. Year after year, Ripple unlocks XRP and then relocks most of it. That's not random behavior, that's controlled supply management. And even Ripple's leadership has hinted that portions of escrow could already be spoken for through private agreements. So the real bottleneck here is not demand. It's regulatory clarity, the legal side, and why it matters. Here's what many people still don't fully grasp. XRP now has legal clarity in the United States. Retail XRP sales are not securities. Institutional contracts were classified based on contract structure, not the asset itself. XRP is increasingly being treated like a commodity, similar to Bitcoin and Ethereum. And once federal clarity is fully codified across agencies, banks can finally integrate XRP into regulated systems without hesitation. That's the switch. And once that switch flips, things change very fast. Price doesn't move during plumbing. Here's a lesson most retail investors never learn. Price doesn't move while infrastructure is being built. Price moves when volume hits the rails. That's how Swift scaled. That's how Visa scaled. Backend first, deployment later. XRP is following that same pattern. It's not a moonshot narrative. It's settlement infrastructure being wired into traditional finance. Quietly, methodically, legally. Interoperability is the next phase. Another big development is interoperability. XRP is no longer meant to live on an island. Ripple is actively integrating XRP across other ecosystems, including high-activity chains with massive developer communities. That means new users, new demand, and deeper liquidity. This isn't competition. It's collaboration. And that's how real financial systems grow. Why I don't watch the price every day. Let me say this personally. If you're a long-term holder, staring at the price every day does nothing but drain your energy. Infrastructure doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It announces itself with usage. One day, you won't need to check the chart because everyone else will be calling you. That's how these things work. Final thought. XRP isn't trying to be loud. It's trying to be essential. Liquidity, payments, settlement, banking infrastructure. And history tells us something very clear. The most powerful financial systems are invisible until you can't function without them. So the question isn't, why hasn't XRP pumped? The real question is, are you watching the candles? Or are you watching the rails?